Why older Christians are Satan's biggest threat. Why he fears you. lightUpFait, the most dangerous believer in the world, is not the loudest, the youngest, or the most visible. It is the one Satan failed to destroy. That if you are older, if your hair carries silver, if your body remembers pain, loss, and long nights of prayer, hear this clearly. Hell knows your name. Not because you are weak, but because you are still standing. There comes a moment in every believer's life when applause fades. The world stops celebrating your strength. Your speed slows. Your face changes. Your voice is quieter. And that is the exact moment heaven leans closer. Because what the world calls decline, God calls distillation. You may look in a mirror and see age, but the enemy sees something else entirely. He sees a believer who walked through fire and refused to let go of God's hand. He sees someone who buried dreams, survived betrayal, endured silence from heaven, and still chose faith. He sees scars that testify louder than sermons. That is why Satan fears you. Not because you are perfect, but because you are proven. Scripture reveals a pattern the enemy understands better than many believers do. God does not discard his servants with time. He sharpens them. Moses was not sent at 40, but at 80. Abraham did not receive the promise in youth, but when the body could no longer produce it. Caleb did not ask for retirement, but for mountains at 85. Anna did not preach with platforms, but with presence, fasting, and decades of prayer. John did not see revelation in his prime, but exiled, aged, and alone. Age never disqualified power. It concentrated it. You carry a faith that has been tested by time. Not emotional faith, not borrowed faith, but faith that survived unanswered prayers, financial strain, sickness, grief, and spiritual warfare. Faith that remained when feelings disappeared. The enemy does not fear comfort, that he fears endurance. You have lived long enough to know that God does not always rescue quickly, but he is always faithful. You have watched him come through late and still right on time. You have seen doors open that logic sealed shut. You have seen healing arrive after doctors gave up. You have felt peace descend in seasons that made no sense. That kind of faith cannot be taught. That it can only be forged. And because it was forged in fire, cannot be broken by pressure. Satan knows this, that he remembers every attack he launched against you. He remembers the sickness that should have ended you, the loss that should have silenced you, the discouragement meant to hollow you out. And every time you rose again, you rose wiser. That is what terrifies him. Your faith has memory. Your faith has history. Your faith has evidence. When the enemy whispers, God won't come through this time, your spirit answers with testimony. When doubt tries to rewrite truth, your life corrects it. When fear tries to speak, your past silences it. This is not fragile faith. This is weaponized faith. And when you pray, hell recognizes the sound. There's a weight to your voice that younger believers have not yet earned. Not because they are inferior, but because time has not yet finished shaping them. Your prayers are not rushed. They are not impulsive. They are layered with waiting, surrender, and trust refined through years of perseverance. You know how to pray when nothing changes. You know how to pray when tears replace words. You know how to pray when hope feels thin, and Satan fears prayers that refuse to stop. Your intercession carries authority because it was born in valleys. You don't pray theory, you pray history. You don't quote scripture casually. You lean on it because it held you up. That is why chains break when you pray. That is why atmospheres shift. That is why darkness resists your presence. You are not loud, but you are lethal to lies. And beyond prayer, you carry something even more dangerous to hell: spiritual memory. You remember what the enemy wants forgotten. You remember God's victories. You remember answered prayers. You remember deliverance. You remember restoration. You remember that every season the enemy promised would end, you became a chapter God used to shape you. Memory exposes deception. Satan survives by convincing people that this time will be different, that God will fail now, that hope is pointless, that obedience costs too much. But memory dismantles his strategy. You have lived long enough to recognize patterns. You have seen temptations recycle. You have watched lies repackage themselves generation after generation. And because you remember, you can warn. Your discernment is not suspicion, it is experience. You know what compromise costs. You know how slowly drifting leads to collapse. You know how spiritual dryness begins. You know when a voice is not from God, and that knowledge makes you a guardian. Hell fears believers who can expose traps before others fall into them. Hell fears those who can say, "I've seen this before," and it ends badly. Hell fears those who can guide others safely through territory they once barely survived. Your presence covers more ground than you realize. And your wisdom dismantles the enemy's oldest lies. There's a wisdom that comes only from walking with God through silence as well as miracles. Wisdom shaped by listening when heaven was quiet and trusting when answers delayed. Wisdom that is not reactive, not emotional, not impulsive. This wisdom unmasks deception quickly. You are not easily impressed. You are not easily shaken. You test spirits. You weigh words. You recognize false teaching without panic because truth has lived in you long enough to be familiar. And Satan hates that. He hates that you are no longer moved by spectacle. That he hates that Scripture anchors you. That he hates that you value obedience over excitement. Your wisdom is not outdated. That it is eternal. Because it was shaped by the God who never changes. And above all, you are something Satan cannot silence. You are a living testimony. Your life is proof that God restores, heals, sustains, and keeps His promises. Every breath you take is a reminder to hell that the enemy failed. You survived what should have destroyed you. You endured what should have erased you. You walked through darkness and came out believing anyway. People may argue theology, but they cannot argue your story. Your life preaches when your mouth is quiet. Your endurance strengthens the weary. Your faith steadies the unstable. Your testimony burns through doubt. And the enemy knows that every person who hears your story is another soul pulled out of his grip. You are not fading. You are finishing strong. And Satan knows the most dangerous chapter of your life is not behind you, that it is ahead. There is something the enemy understands that many believers forget with age. Influence does not shrink with time, that it multiplies. And that is why Satan fears what God is doing through you right now. You were never meant to walk this season alone or silently. You were shaped to become a living bridge between generations. A voice strong enough to anchor the young, steady enough to guide the confused, and compassionate enough to heal the wounded. Older believers carry something the next generation desperately needs but rarely finds. Truth without compromise and love without condition. You have lived long enough to know what works and what destroys. You know which shortcuts cost too much. You know which paths look right but end in regret. You have seen how drifting from prayer weakens faith. You have watched families fracture because warnings were ignored. You have witnessed how one unguarded decision can open doors that take years to close. And because you know you can protect, Satan fears generational transfer. He fears what happens when wisdom speaks before damage is done. He fears what happens when experience steps in and says, "Stop, I've walked this road. There's a better way." He fears spiritual mothers and fathers who refuse to let the next generation wander unguarded. Your words can stabilize a collapsing faith. Your honesty can redirect a destiny. Your prayers can shield lives you may never fully see. You don't need a pulpit. You don't need a platform. You don't need permission. Your authority was earned by survival, and hell trembles when influence multiplies, because when you pour into one life, it doesn't stop there. It spreads into families, marriages, churches, and futures. Satan knows he cannot afford to let your wisdom flow freely. That is why he tries to convince older believers they are irrelevant, tired, or finished. But heaven says something else entirely. Scripture reveals a truth that silences every lie of retirement from purpose. God often saves His most powerful work for the final chapters. Not the loudest chapters, but the most decisive ones. Abraham carried nations in his old age. Moses confronted Pharaoh when youth was long gone. Caleb claimed mountains when others asked for rest. Anna shifted history through prayer after decades of waiting. Elizabeth carried promise when biology said no. Daniel influenced empires in his later years. John received revelation when isolated, aged, and exiled. Age did not weaken their calling. It refined it. The enemy knows the pattern, but he knows that. Believers who survive decades of warfare emerge with clarity, courage, and authority that cannot be taught. He knows your dependency on God is deeper now. Your pride is smaller. Your obedience is purer. Your motives are cleaner. You no longer need applause. You no longer chase recognition. You no longer confuse activity with obedience. And that terrifies him, because when older believers rise with renewed purpose, hell loses ground quickly. You are not winding down. You are being sharpened. The battles that exhausted you are training grounds. The seasons that confused you were preparation. The delays that hurt you were alignment. God was shaping a vessel that could carry weight without breaking. Your courage is deeper now. Your roots are stronger. Your discernment is sharper. Your prayers are heavier. Your faith is unmovable. And Satan sees what many believers overlook. Your final chapter will be your strongest. The world measures value by speed and visibility. Heaven measures value by endurance and faithfulness. And your life has become a living witness that obedience over time produces unstoppable spiritual authority. You are not a burden to the church. You are a backbone. You are not fading. You are fortified. You are not forgotten. You are remembered in heaven. Every day you wake up is a reminder to the enemy that he failed. He tried to stop you before you reached this season. He tried to wear you down. He tried to silence your voice. He tried to convince you that your best days were behind you. But you are still here, and that makes you dangerous. You carry endurance he cannot destroy, memory he cannot erase, wisdom he cannot counterfeit, authority he cannot challenge, and a testimony he cannot refute. Your life has become a weapon forged through decades of faithfulness. Your presence weakens darkness. Your prayers strengthen heaven's work on earth. Your voice matters. Your story matters. Your obedience matters. God is not finished with you, but he is working through you now. And if this message is stirring something in your spirit, it is not coincidence. It is confirmation. Heaven is reminding you of who you are and what you carried at walk boldly. Pray confidently. Speak fearlessly. Stand faithfully. Hell fears you, but heaven empowers you. And if this message spoke to your heart, strengthened your faith, or reminded you of your purpose, I invite you to stand with us. Subscribe to Light Up Faith. Share this message with someone who needs encouragement, and stay connected. Because God is raising voices in this generation, and yours is one of them. This is Light Up Faith, and your purpose is far from over.